do. Thank you. All right, continuing on with the Wildlife Committee, we've got a preview of amendment to the chronic wasting disease rule. Call Chief of Wildlife and Forestry, Joe Benedict, to the podium. Thank you, Joe.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Apologize if I end up coughing. I have the Christmas cold that was going around, so it's good to be with you again. Initially, I was here to talk about a commission request from the last meeting in December. We had a lively discussion about chronic wasting disease regarding baiting, and you all passed a rule there, of course, that will go on to GovOps Committee. This morning, or this afternoon, instead of talking about buffer counties to the CWD management zone first, well, I'd like to talk about them last. We do have some new CWD positive counties that we wanted to share initially, which will go into the buffer county discussion. So we'll share those. And then because of these recommendations, because of these positive counties, we have some recommendations for this rule, which is 1660-01-34. So this is sort of the old CWD management rule that we've had in place since 2018, I believe. So again, we'll move to the buffer county discussion till the end. So a few reminders for us all as we think about chronic wasting disease. Deer season is over for the adults. We've got the youth season coming up Saturday and Sunday. So we'll get some more samples, and we also have samples at the lab from the regular deer season. So we don't have all the samples in yet. We'll fully evaluate this year's data in the coming weeks as those final results come in. Another piece to just remind us about is there's deer management, which is, hunters hunting, quota hunts and bag limits and those kind of things. With chronic wasting disease, disease management is very different, right? And we know from the agricultural world, disease management is, eradicate and wipe things out. But for those of us in wildlife where we have wild critters, we can't eradicate and wipe things out and start a new chicken flock, for example. We have to engage hunters. Hunters are, the biggest stakeholder we have. Hunters and fishermen are the biggest stakeholders we have in the agency. And a key thing is, they've been essential partners in conservation forever, also in chronic wasting disease since the beginning. A couple things to note: they have access to property, right? So the agency has, we've got a lot of WMAs and thousands of acres of land, but there's way more acres of land that are private. And so when we think about managing wildlife population or animals, access to property is kind of a key thing, and we do not go onto property without permission. Again, hunters have access to property. Hunters also choose if they want to hunt or not, right? So there's a lot of things that compete for all of our time. I know I hunt fewer days than I ever have, the older I get, and the more work the director puts on us, wink, wink. But they also have a choice to harvest or not, right? So, how many of us have been out there on a cold, windy day and we have a Christmas party to go to and there's a nice deer in front of us and you're like, I think I'm just going to pass on that tonight, right? So besides that sort of simple analogy, there's a lot of reasons folks may not choose to harvest a deer. And some of the chronic wasting disease, the impacts of that disease are part of their choice to not just hunt, but also harvest deer. There's also not a single right answer here, right? We as humans and as scientists, we want to find the best answer, the right answer with scientific data to back it up and make that choice. And it's easy. Chronic wasting disease, deer management, it's not easy. And so there's nothing right here. There's nothing right or wrong really today. So again, there's more samples that will come out as the days go through here, as we get results from the lab from this past deer season. This recommended approach that we have that I'll share with you today, which is a couple of recommendations for this rule, that approach will be evergreen. And so if we get another positive county in the next, with data from this year that we don't have as a result yet, the approaches that we provide, if the commission agrees with those and makes this rule change, that will help us moving forward to not have to worry about every time we get a new positive county. So we know CW is going to grow and continue to spread a little bit. We're hopeful it stays at a slow rate. But again, we think now that is a good time to kind of make some changes at this point. So this slide up here on the green, sorry, you can't see the green as well here in the dark room, but the left side, you guys have all seen the chronic wasting disease management zone. It's in the green there. It's west of the Tennessee River. It also includes Lewis and Wayne County. Commissioners, you all received from me a couple of different emails in the last several weeks of Dixon County and Williamson County. And then just this week, we discovered a positive in Humphreys County there. So Humphreys County now touches the CW management zone, and then Dixon, and then Williamson. So these are all positive counties. Now they have one positive animal. So very different than Southwest Tennessee counties. So again, there's 3 new positive counties there in that kind of burnt orange color. We will not change anything for the youth seasons, which are coming up day after tomorrow and Sunday. Because these counties are contiguous, they would automatically become part of the chronic wasting disease management plan zone. And we just don't want to have folks, with the 1 day notice, have to figure out how to transport animals to their processor, to their butcher, and worry about all of that for the kids. So the changes that would come about with these positive counties, we're going to not worry about that until after the UC. So folks hunting this weekend in those 3 counties can pretend they aren't positive at the point. So again, going back to the management zone regulations there in 1660-01-34, in the zone, there's no feeding. There are some exceptions. You can feed 100 feet from the house, normal agricultural feed, et cetera. The carcass transportation restrictions are throughout the green areas. You can move carcasses within the green area, but you can't take them out unless they're boned out, meat, clean skulls, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then finally, the thing in that rule is that contiguous positive counties are automatically added to the zone. This rule was done in 2023. We were having, counties become positive every year. And so that's the reason that previous commissioners and agency recommendations put that into the rule. Again, non-contiguous counties in this current rule that was established in 2023, the agency would basically decide something and bring it to you guys as a recommendation. So until earlier this week, when we had Williamson and Dixon County, this is where we would have been, a non-contiguous county. And we would have decided, made some recommendations and brought them to you. So when we think about chronic wasting disease, again, hunters have a choice to hunt that day and harvest deer in areas with very low CWD prevalence, and especially these positive counties, and there's very low presence. We need to keep folks hunting, right? 1 deer out of the hundreds of deer that we've tested in those counties is positive. So we know that CWD is very sparse there. We do need more samples in those areas, particularly on those properties, to see what the prevalence is. But we want to keep folks hunting outside because, again, the agency can't go in there and harvest deer. We can't reduce deer. We need hunters to do that. And so we want to ensure that folks can get to the processors. I have a map here. I think it's right here. These pink dots, again, I apologize for the darkness of this room. Those dots on there are processors that we know. It may not be all of them, but those are the primary processors. And you'll see there's a dot between Dixon and Williamson County there. There's a dot in Davidson County. There's places where folks within these green counties would not be able to go and take their deer to be processed. And so the agency spent a lot of time this week and in the last couple of weeks thinking through this. But again, what we want to share with you today is some simplifications, if you will, for rules to make it easier for folks to harvest deer in these new counties that have 1 detection and still get to their processors, and also still allow for the proper disposal of these animals, which of course have the prions in them. So at a high level, there's 3 things that I want to share as agency recommendations for this rule. The first one is to add a disposal requirement for deer carcasses. Now, this would be statewide. And essentially, we looked at Missouri, Georgia, some other states that either have recently changed their CWD management approach, or they're new states. Georgia's very new, a couple of years. And they're thinking, again, about this idea that we need to keep hunters hunting, and we want animals to be able to get to processors, and we want those carcasses disposed of in a proper way. So we'll talk through that here in a minute about this new disposal requirement. We'll ask you to basically add to this rule. The second piece there is something I think the commission was very interested in December, is to prohibit feeding in CWD positive counties. There's a lot of discussion about what, we're going to not allow baiting, but they can still feed there. So we think this aligns with the commission's wishes from last month, and it's a great approach to managing not just the disease, but also deer. And then finally, an adjustment to the CWD management zone. And I'll talk through that here in just a minute. Again, reminder that you all prohibited baiting in CWD positive counties. That was last month. That will go to the GovOps committee here in the next few months, and hopefully that will pass as well. So the first recommendation there would be to add a new section. It's section 0.04 about carcass disposal. And again, we want to provide for consistent disposal of carcasses across the state with best management practices. This recommendation also would prohibit us or exclude us from needing to provide further transportation restrictions outside of the CWD management zone. And so I'll go through this really quickly and just kind of come back to that point. Statewide disposal of cervid or deer carcasses, parts, and products. And the language we have drafted, again, it came from Missouri. We tweaked it a little bit, but all parts of a deer carcass that are not kept or not provided to a taxidermist, processor, or tanner must be disposed of through a normal waste stream, as you would for household waste, or left on the property where the deer was harvested. So for instance, if I harvest a deer in a different county, and I gut the deer and I bring it to my house a couple counties away, and I butcher the deer myself, I have a pile of waste. I have bones. I have things that I need to dispose of. Instead of putting them out behind my house in the field, which I might be doing for years, we want folks to put them in their regular trash, and go to the landfill, or leave them on the property they were harvested. Again, we're trying to make it easy for folks to harvest animals and dispose of them properly without creating, county-specific transportation regulations that would prohibit them from going to a processor. And processors, they have their own waste stream, tanners, all those things, they have their waste stream already set. So this is our first recommendation to add this new section. Again, this would be statewide, a statewide regulation. The second piece, again, this is what we talked about in December over the feeding concerns. We don't want to concentrate deer unnaturally, particularly in CWD positive counties. And so this language here is the exact same language, except the first, several words there that's already in this rule. So in the rule, it says within the CWD management zone, and it lists this prohibition. And here what we say is we're adding this 0.05 section, and we're saying within a CWD positive county, you can't feed deer, with these few exceptions here. Again, food placed within 100 feet of a residence, feed placed in a manner to reasonably exclude access by deer as part of a wild hog management effort authorized by the agency. When folks have a hog exemption, they can bait in certain instances, and then some normal agricultural practices there. So again, agency feels like this would be favorable to you all as a great management tool there. And then finally, getting onto the final recommendation we have is to adjust the CWD management zone. And so if you look at the slide, you see the 3 new positive counties there in orange, and you'll notice down at the bottom, Wayne and Lewis County, we've changed them from green to orange, to explain what we want to do here. The recommendation is to pull those counties out of the CWD management zone. There's only one positive animal in each of those 2 counties, and really all those 5 counties now. So what the recommendation would be to remove Wayne and Lewis County from the management zone, remove the language that says the management zone grows automatically when contiguous counties are become positive. All the other existing regulations would remain in the CWD management zone, and that zone also would have this new statewide disposal requirement. So it would be a shrinking of the CWD management zone, and actually this was not intentional, but it aligns with Deer Management Unit 1. And again, as we move forward and we find one positive animal in a county, we need to keep folks hunting there. We need additional samples that will reduce, the deer harvest or the deer population, or keep it in check a little bit. And we want those folks to be able to go to a processor. We've done some surveys after we found chronic wasting disease, and 60 or more % of the folks that were surveyed use a processor. And I have this number 86% in my head, but I forgot to look that up, so I apologize. But many of our hunters, rely on processors. So we need, that's a limiting factor for them. And so we wanted to bring these changes to you to allow for those folks in those areas with one positive to keep hunting. I think I've said these points here. So again, these counties have one positive deer. It's difficult to move deer around. We don't want complex restrictions because that impacts harvest. And again, these new disposal regulations, which I mentioned as the first recommendation, hopefully would be in place in these areas. So I believe this is my final slide here on this piece. So specifically for those CWD positive counties that are outside the management zone, the regulations there would include no baiting. Again, this is an action the commission took in December. The two proposals we have here today are to not allow feeding there, and then have the new disposal requirements in those counties. So again, when we think about this from a high level, folks that are maybe just tuning in or will start to tune in over the summer or early fall next year, when they look to see, oh, my counties are positive, what is that going to change for me for hunting? They really have very little change except this disposal requirement. So again, idea is to keep folks hunting, keep deer being harvested, so we can keep testing them and keep folks out there hunting. The final slide I have here is just kind of a map. This, I think, was a specific request of the commission of the chair last meeting to bring this to you. We have the same map there. We have the red counties, orange counties that are positive. We have the green CWD management zone. And then in blue, we have buffer counties. So the buffer counties, there's 11 of them. They're in blue. These do not have chronic wasting disease detected there yet. And so the question before the commission is for what's the language the commission desires for us to include in the rule. And I guess I do have kind of a discussion point slide maybe to help us go through the discussion here. The agency, General Counsel Grimes, will draft a rule, and it'll be a red line rule. So the changes that you all would like to see, he'll file that with the Secretary of State, and then you all would have a meeting to vote on that in March, so 52 days later. So the agency needs to know what the commission's recommendations are to put in that draft rule. The final vote on the rule would not take place until the rule hearing, which will be in March. So again, the purpose of these pieces today is to get, I guess consensus might be the word. I'll look to General Counsel Grimes to help here. What the commission feels as a whole body for the agency to put in that draft rule, which will be submitted to the AG's office. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Joe. Quite a complex topic and situation. I want to remind the members of the Wildlife Committee that what we will be voting on today is an action to recommend this proclamation preview to the full commission. We are not voting to adopt this proclamation at this point. It's just to recommend the preview to the full commission. So with that said, do I have any Wildlife Committee members that would like to comment or have a question for Joe? Commissioner Box.
How many positives in Lake County?
I don't know. 0. So there's no positive counties. I think we have 3 counties with no positives yet.
And yet we're treating it as part of the zone?
Yes, sir. Some of the thought behind that, when we look at the map of the green, the CWD management zone, that rule has been in place for a number of years, and the hunters and the processors have moved into that those regulations. When we created the management zone, it allowed folks to move deer back and forth, and it allowed them to go to their processors already. And so that was the thinking. We didn't want to start changing all these different zones because the folks have kind of gotten into what their regulations are in those areas west of the Tennessee River.
And it's not just Lake. There's several counties in that zone that have no detections yet, correct?
I believe it's 3 that have no detections.
Benton, I can't recall.
I think maybe it's Lake and Obion and Benton County.
And so we're going to allow feeding in counties where we have a positive and restricted in counties we don't.
No, so the recommendation here, the second one is to prohibit feeding in CWD positive counties. So we'd like to take care of that. After the discussion in December, this is the agency's recommendation that we prohibit baiting anywhere that's positive.
Okay.
Commissioner McCarty.
Joe, do we have any data on the differences of spread of CWD due to carcasses versus versus the other methods of deer contact?
Dr. Grove is here. Mark McBride is here. They have other, they could add to this if they need to, but we really don't know how CWD spreads. I mean, we know how it can spread, deer-to-deer contact, carcass movement, et cetera. We have no way to know, for instance, what happened in Williamson County or Dixon County or Humphreys County. We have no way to determine that.
I'm looking more from just big picture. One of our biggest issues is the transportation rule and the complications because of it. And what level do we think CWD transfers due to carcasses versus other natural transfer?
I'll let Mark, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, Assistant Chief Mark McBride over Game Species.
I think to add a little context there, Commissioner, one of the reasons transport regulations have often been kind of one of the first thing that state agencies do is it's really the only thing that the agency can control is CWD, right? And we know carcasses do spread it. There's conjecture that vultures will predate a carcass and fly around with it and spread CWD. We don't know. No one's proved that. But at the end of the day, there's very few control mechanisms that agencies actually have on the spread of disease, and carcass transport is one of them. So states through time have kind of been like, we can't really control anything, but this is one aspect where we might be able to. But as Joe mentioned in his presentation, those same states through time have started to recognize, this is creating quite a burden for some hunters, certainly for processors and taxidermists and their businesses, and we recognize that. So a lot of them are shifting to this carcass disposal route to ease that burden on hunters.
Commissioner Moody.
So talking about the carcass disposal and the movement to dispose of it in, like with household trash, basically in a trash bag. What's going to be the feedback from the county landfills? Are they going to be at a point that they don't accept it? I mean, I know personally our county landfill has a problem accepting kitty litter. So, yeah, what are we looking at there? Have we put any research into that?
I think a lot of folks that butcher their own deer already do this, depending on where you live. If you don't live in the county, in the country, I've got numerous friends that they do this. I don't know that we could speak to other landfills and what they've done with it. If they're an approved landfill for, I'm losing track of here what I'm trying to say. A lined landfill is allowed to take this material. So we've been through some of that in the past. Commissioners, you're aware of that.
Any other members of the Wildlife Committee? Yes, sir. Commissioner Box.
All right, I'm slow, so work with me. So on 3 up there, if we take Lake, Benton, and Oban, and they're not automatically added based on that, are we going to keep them in the zone?
Yes, sir. We're going to keep those in the zone. So if I was unclear, the agency recommendation is to remove Wayne and Lewis County from the zone. The rest of the zone would stay. All of its regulations would stay. Wayne and Lewis, Humphreys, Williamson, and Dixon now would fall into these other things. No feeding, no baiting that you've taken care of, and then this disposal method.
And we're keeping the Lake, Oban, and Benton in because they are beside other positive counties, but we're not doing that in Middle. I don't understand.
The CWD management zone's been in place for a long time, right? And hunters have gotten used to how they move deer and how they operate there. CWD in West Tennessee, obviously that it's in your sort of backyard. There's a lot more CWD diseased deer there on the landscape. Prevalences are much higher in those surrounding counties than they are in Williamson County, Lewis County, those counties that are far east. So If we look at the heat map, and I didn't put this up here, I can bring it tomorrow if folks want, but the heat map is the farther away you go, the fewer positive animals you have. But west of the river, we have more than east of the river, if that makes sense. Would it be helpful to have the heat map tomorrow? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Joe. I would just like to explain to the general public how serious this matter is. The ultimate game with CWD is low deer density, low buck age structure. It's not up for debate anymore. It's a fact. It's happening in Fayette and Hardeman County. It's happening in Northwest Arkansas. We don't have a cure for this disease. We're trying to do the best we can to manage its spread, but obviously what you've seen it popping up in Williamson County, and I've heard 3 miles per year naturally. Well, apparently it's hitching a ride in the back of somebody's pickup truck somehow. So this is a very serious situation. And one of the things I want to point out is that the number one revenue stream for this agency is deer hunt licenses. And if you get enough people that hunt that don't want to hunt anymore because they can't kill an older age buck or they can't see a deer, it becomes a revenue problem for this agency. And I can assure you this commission and this agency and its executive team are working very hard to do the best we can to address these generational issues for this state. So I just want to commend you for the work you've done. Seems like every time CWD comes up, it's a different discussion, a different topic, a different nuance. So do I have any comments from the remainder of the commission related to this proclamation? Commissioner Butt.
I'm of the same persuasion of Commissioner Moody, because Murray County has a restriction on their collection centers of no animal waste. And I don't know if you've thought through that recommendation, but not every county has a landfill. Matter of fact, South Central Development District counties, which are 13, have contracted with an entity from Hornwall that hauls all the animal carcasses to Murfreesboro to the landfill. And so that would be violating restrictions from Murray County's collection centers, all of them, to put animal waste in those bags, in those containers. So I'm hesitant to allow that recommendation to stand across the state if that's the case of other counties. So I think I would encourage the agency to reconsider that possibility in light of at least restrictions in Murray County that say you can't dump animal carcasses in those garbage containers.
Commissioner Blue.
Joe, can you pull back up the CWD map? Yeah, let me step up here and look at it and show you. Let me ask y'all a question, and Commissioner Mark, Joe, I know we talked about this, that's why I looked at yesterday, officially. The main counties with high prevalence rates that we have are down here in Fayette and Hardeman. Fayette and Hardeman down here have the highest prevalence rates of the entire West, Zone 1 and Zone 2. This is Zone 1 and 2. So those two counties have the highest prevalence rate, right?
Correct.
By some way higher.
In most cases, yes.
Yeah. So
Shelby County is also high.
This county, Fayette and Hardeman got the prevalence rate of what? 25 to 30%?
Around there.
Henry County appears to have a prevalence rate of what?
Small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know these off the top of my head.
Lake County, there's none. O'Brien County, none. Wheatley County, 2. The only really two counties we've got with high prevalence rates, I'm not saying the word right, prevalence rates, are Fayette and Hardeman. But you can see the impact that those two counties are having on their deer population. The 8 years prior to CWD, they killed 25,000 more deer than the last 8 years. So 25,000 harvests reduction in the last 8 years compared to the prior years of CWD. In those two counties, just in those two counties. So I think our worst case scenario is in Fayette and Hardeman, and people are seeing that and understanding that now in those two counties, because those two are what some of these other counties will be in, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. You know, Hickman and Williamson may have the same percentage that they have now. Of course, the prevalence rate is not actually the infection rate. That's just what we know, what we've tested, and what we've found to be infected in those counties. So it's going to spread, and obviously, as we've been getting the emails, it's popping up all over West and Middle Tennessee. So if we're wanting to slow this, we're not going to be able to stop it. We're wanting to slow it. Why would we not do something simple like zone 1, zone 2, right here over? We've already got the counties established. We've already got maps on them in our hunter guide. Zone 1 and zone 2 are the CWD management zone. Can't feed, can't bait in zone 1 or zone 2. Transportation guidelines are the same. You can transport a deer to your taxidermist, you can transport it to your house to process it, or you can take it to a professional processor in zone 1 or zone 2. That would be really simple. Really simple. The hunters they can take the deer where they want, zone 1, zone 2. And the disposal requirements, keep those as you want, as you said. And inter-county landfills will be the same with the issues of the deer carcass. So I don't know about that working, but why would we not do something that simple? And then have all of these counties that are already being included in it as well. If we're going to do it for Lake, we're going to do it for O'Brien, we're doing it for Henry, it's got 2 deer, we're doing it for, I don't know, the only 2 major counties we got are these 2 down here, and we'll do Shelby. But it's coming this way. Why would we not just draw a line and cut it off from there? That's my question.
Commissioner
So-
Blue, thank you for that.
Let me interrupt, Joe, I'm sorry. Commissioner Blue, are you saying that you would be able to take a deer from zone 1 into zone 2 for processing, for instance, from Fayette to Lincoln County, or just within zone 1 and within zone 2?
I would keep it simple. I would say that you could carry, and I would say that's up for debate. You could carry, if you killed a deer in zone 1, you can carry it anywhere in zone 1. Or if you killed a deer, but there again, I mean, if you kill a deer in Humphreys, does that mean you can't carry it to Benton? You kill a deer in Madison? I mean, I would say a deer, if you kill a deer in zone 1 or zone 2, you can carry it anywhere you want, in zone 1 or zone 2.
Okay, thank you.
It is what I would say.
Okay.
Your transportation guidelines are from here to here. Basically. Carry deer anywhere you want within that. I think, now I haven't found any, and I haven't been able to find any studies on it, but on the way transportation spreads it versus the way we know how it spreads, you know. But I think there's a lower chance. I would think that there's a lower chance. And it's a tougher job for the enforcement officers to enforce these transportation guidelines. Nobody's gonna know. I can kill a deer in Henry County and take it to Wilson County, pick it up, go the long way, and you're not gonna know. I mean, it's a tough case to make. Tough case to make. So I think the rate is really slow and lower in a lot of counties. And I think the thing that we need to remember is this is not going to affect us right now or next year, but 10 years or 15 years down the road. But that's what Fayette, Hardeman, and Shelby are seeing now. They're seeing the effects of it, and they're at 25-30% rate. Where Henry County is at 1%. but in 10 years, we could be there.
So Commissioner Blue, would you like for Joe to consider this for his presentation tomorrow?
Yes, sir, I would.
Okay.
Or if it's not a good idea, why don't we not do that? But that's as simple as you get it right there.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that.
Absolutely.
So the agency considered that kind of idea. And again, when you think about Fayette and Hardeman County and Shelby County, and I think Madison, there's other areas that have a high prevalence. It's not 25%, but you get to 4 and 5%. What we don't want is to take deer from Fayette Hardeman County and bring them all the way to Wilson County or Williamson County. So that's why we said, let's leave the CWD management zone like it is. It's basically west of the river. There is a bit of a barrier by the river, right? Not complete, obviously, but
Those two counties, I mean, we don't, Fayette and Hardeman are at 25, 30%. The next highest rate county that we have is what? 4? What's 4.5?
10%.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, scratch Shelby. I know you can turn on your mic now. Well, I hadn't had one last 15 minutes, my bad. But next month I may ask for a portable mic or maybe one of those headsets. But if scratch Shelby, Fayette, and Hardeman, what's the next county with the next highest rate? It's probably 3 or 4%, I would say, right? Or what is it, Doc? Roughly 5? Okay.
This is Dr. Dan Grove. He's our CWD coordinator. Dr. Grove, did I pronounce that correctly?
Well, Jeremy Dennis is the CWD coordinator. I'm,
You're the PhD of
Yeah.
CWD.
Yes. So for the prevalences, we haven't calculated them out this year. My guess is they're going to be higher. We wait till the end of the season to do the official calculations, but our ranges last year were anywhere with Fayette and Hardeman being the highest, anywhere from 25 to 30%,
Right,
depending on which county you're looking at. Roughly 7 to 10% for Shelby County, but then the next were between 4 and 6%. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the counties are, but I would anticipate that to actually change this year.
Sure. Okay. What, let me ask you this, Doc. Doing what I was saying, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm not trying to be hard. I'm wanting my grandkids to kill deer. I want y'all's I want this to spread as slow as we possibly do. And why would we not want to draw a line right there and shut it down? And if we're worried about deer coming out of them 3 counties, box them in. There's all kind of processors in those 3 counties.
Commissioner Blue,
Shelby, Fayette, and all Hardeman, they all got processors.
well, if I could respond, part of the rationale that we shared, and maybe it was just one statement in there, the folks in the CWD management zone are used to these regulations now. They have been for some time. And so what they're doing and killing animals, deciding to hunt, deciding to harvest animals, and then taking the processors, we don't feel like there's a big issue with there. And so what we wanted our concern now is with these new areas, right? The folks in these 5 red counties now, or orange counties,
Right.
We don't want them to have the same sort of trouble that we had in West Tennessee in those first number of years as we evolve the transportation issue. And so what we're saying is moving forward, a CWD positive county, no feeding, no baiting, and just make sure we dispose of our animals in the right way so they're not on the landscape, right? It's a simple approach. It's evergreen. So anytime a new county becomes positive, the regulations they're simple, they're the same, and it's best management practices. The transportation issue in West Tennessee, we would be loosening up what we have now. If you allowed animals from Fayette and Hardeman County to go outside of the current CW management zone, the chance of spreading it, we don't know how small it would be. You're increasing the idea that deer could be moved from Fayette and Hardeman County or adjacent to there, Madison County, if it's 5%. You could be allowing people to bring deer farther into East Tennessee than they are now. So we, as an agency, we don't want to relax those regulations. Our thoughts here are moving forward with these single positive counties.
But my idea was to keep it simple. That was what you were promoting, is to keep it simple. There's nothing no more simpler than that right there. And I mean, y'all been sending emails out. We're getting new positive counties every week now. So I mean, do you not think any of these other counties, do you not think it'll spread west? Wilson, Robertson, do you not think we'll have a case in there?
It will be next year. Will it be 10 years?
Right.
We have no idea. We have no idea at the time.
But that's what I'm saying. I just don't understand why we don't cut it off and include all that in there. And yeah, we are loosening the restrictions on transportation, but that's easy. That's comfort. You're allowing the hunter to take the deer where he wants to. But we're tightening down on the feeding, guidelines
Right.
by double or triple. And then we're creating a huge buffer zone at the same time,
I think
I don't understand why we wouldn't do that. It's simple. It's got a line, zone 1, zone 2. We've got counties within the CWB management zone that don't even have positives, just like Commissioner Bach said. But we're not going to include the ones east of the river. Why don't we include them all? Boom, wrap it up.
so. Commissioner Blue, maybe I'll just try to understand the fullness of what you're suggesting here. So when we think about Deer Management Unit 2, which is those red and orange and blue counties and a few more,
Bless
you're suggesting that we not allow feeding or baiting in that entire area. Is that
Yes, sir.
right?
Zone
Okay.
1, zone 2.
Right. Well,
No,
zone,
I'm not talking about any, I'm saying
zone 1 is already
zone
taken care
2.
of.
Yeah, everything.
Right. So
Everything west, west right there, everything. No feeding, no baiting. And, a lot of this, and these officers will tell you back here, I mean, it's tough to make the cases that they make now. And go to any Walmart, Tractor Supply, and see what type of revenue they've brought in on corn, baiting supplies. I mean, it's tough. We're only keeping the honest people honest half the time. But if we're worried about the spread, I don't know why we wouldn't want to be doing something as conservative as this and locking it down. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just I think what I'll do for tomorrow is we'll fill in with a blue color the remaining counties in Deer Management Unit 2 to get to what Commissioner Blue's request was,
Joe, I think
Just for
that sounds,
just for discussion purposes.
certainly, I think that sounds reasonable. Now, Commissioner Baloo, what I'm hearing is we don't want to take a deer out of Fayette County and put it in Lincoln County processor, and I agree with that. So what I think if you color the rest of the Region 2 counties in, and you've got the CWD zone, Zone 1, transport regs, and then you've got the baiting, feeding in Zone 2, that's kind of where we're headed with this. That's what I'm feeling. So,
So what would be the best idea for transportation guidelines? If you kill a deer in zone 1, it has to stay in zone 1. If you kill a deer in zone 2, it has to stay in zone 2? Or what?
I think with all due respect, Commissioner Blue, maybe give Joe and the staff time to think about that, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Does that seem logical?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Chairman, I think we've thought about it. We've presented it. I would say if we'll make the maps that Commissioner Blue's requesting, and then the vote will be up to you all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Butt.
So for 2 years, we've had restrictions on transporting deer killed in Wayne County over into Lawrence County because it's contiguous with CWD zone. Clarify how that's going to change for me now, because I'm going to get that question. So if you don't mind, what's going to be the situation now transporting a deer killed in Wayne County into Lawrence County?
They'll be allowed to do that. If all 3 recommendations pass, or if the disposal one passes, then they will be
So
able
the
to do
restriction that's been in place for the last several years is going to be removed. Is that what you're saying?
that for that county.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
So I'm going to ask a question as a new commissioner, even though I've been associated since we first found CWD and I missed a couple of years. But so we've been living with CWD for 8 years now, I guess. Is that correct? First case was 8 years ago. Have we compiled enough data now that you could prepare kind of an analysis on how CWD has grown in the counties that we first found it and how it's grown over the years? Just kind of, is there any way that you could present that in a way that would give us some, I mean, we're kind of shooting from the hip a lot of times. We get emails about counties getting positives, but if we could see that in kind of a graphical or or some other kind of presentation where we could actually see how CWD has grown over the years and what directions it's grown in. Is there any way that we could do that?
We have all those annual data. One of the things about chronic wasting disease and other wildlife diseases is, if we had a time series of maps, for instance, the historical maps wouldn't be able to allow us to predict the future, right? If that's where you're thinking about going.
We went through this whole thing about predictive modeling years ago, and being able to put that data in and using that data to predict how CWD would grow and what different controls we could put in to, hopefully control that, that growth and expansion and everything. But I just wondered if we had enough data at this point where we could say, okay, it's started right here, and a year later it grew to this zone and it grew to this zone. And I mean, just, over the last 8 years, it's gone from here to here to here to here to here. Just to give us kind of a picture of what's gone on since we've discovered it.
Maybe the easiest way to show that sort of graphically would be the picture of the heat map of the, at the end of the season, we put a map together with all the positives that we found. And so we could show that, we could provide those to you for each year
chronologically.
And you could, flip through it like the old cartoons, right? Flip through it, see how it changed. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Dr. Grove to maybe talk about the 5% prevalence point. So, we found CWD in 1 or 2 animals. We ask hunters in those areas to continue harvesting deer, see if there's more chronic wasting disease there, or if it's just kind of an anomaly or a single animal. But at some point when we hit 5%, Dan will go through this in greater detail, but it hits a point where it's not 40%, but it hits 5%, I believe, and then you've kind of lost it. So we're talking about 4%, 5%, 6% counties with a couple of positives, but there's I don't know what you call it, the growth factor of the disease, where because there's so many animals on the landscape, there's so much disease in the environment. Once you hit that percentage, like it doesn't go at the same rate. So maybe Dr. Grove, if you could talk about the 5% number that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, well, and before I want to address what Commissioner Jones was asking for. If for those of you who may or may not have been paying attention 8 years ago, one of the things we said, because we found 185 positives our first year. So clearly the disease had been there for longer than it wasn't just that year. It just didn't all of a sudden pop up. And so what we'd always said, and this is, if you look at the real progression of time is probably the last 3 years worth of data, because it took us about 5 years to actually figure out where the true outskirts of the disease were. So if you look at those first 5 years, it looks like, oh my gosh, it's expanding rapidly. And that's because if you look at the way we did our surveillance, when we first did our surveillance, we were focusing hard on the counties bordering Mississippi because they had just found it. And then when we found it at that rate, then we expanded. So each year we expanded, and each year we were finding new positives in new counties. So we can put together the time progression like you were asking, but you have to put it in the context of realizing that it took about 5 years to figure out where the true outskirts were. And so that's not the true probably growth rate that you would actually be seeing at this point in time moving forward. If you expand from Fayette and Hardeman out, because those positives were more than likely already there. It took us 5 years to figure out how far out they went, if that makes any sense. But relative to what Joe's talking about, if you look at wildlife disease in general, if you have a 1% rate of disease in your population of any disease, and we're not going to be talking about CWD with this, if you look at 1%, that's considered high for any wildlife disease. Like if we're talking like rabies in East Tennessee, we get above 0.1%, and that's considered a high prevalence rate. So when we're talking about CWD and you're talking about prevalences, you're talking about what the public perceives as when they can finally start to actually recognize that there's an issue in the population of animals. And because there are so many deer on the landscape, you've got to have a higher prevalence of disease before people are going to start recognizing the impacts of that disease. So that's why in Fayette and Hardeman County, where you have such high prevalences, it's because all across all age structures, you're already starting to see those changes. We're used to things like with hemorrhagic disease. We just had an outbreak this year of hemorrhagic disease in Middle Tennessee. People see a lot of dead animals on the landscape, right? And you will see the impacts that immediate season while you're out hunting, because a lot of those animals died that you were watching on your camera from August, but they die in September and October. And so you're going to see the impact of that disease because it takes out a lot of animals all at once. And so you'll have a high prevalence of disease at that point in time in that given population. With CWD, it takes a while to get to that. But what we've seen across other states, if we extrapolate from there, at roughly 5% is when you've already started to impact your populations. It's just not perceived in the public eye as being impacted until you get to that point where it's like, I just don't see any big bucks anymore. And so you start seeing like between 5 and 10%, that drastic shift in the age structure of the animals on the landscape. And then by the time you're at, that 25 to 30%, you're just not seeing the numbers of deer. So it's relative. Like if you wait until 5%, before you're like, oh, well, that's not that high. That is actually really high. That's already past the point of you being able to do something. Because one of the other things, and it's talked about in the community, there's not necessarily scientific data to support this side of it, but right around 5% is probably when you're starting to see environmental impacts in terms of there's enough prions in the environment to where that's becoming an additive factor to the direct contact transmission cycles. Now, is that exact? It's just kind of what we've seen over the years is that's whenever you start to see the exponential growth curve. So something has to be changing in the contact rates, and it most likely is the environmental side of it. And that's right around 5%. Between 5 and 10% is whenever you go from like a slow growth curve to it all of a sudden just shooting up. And so what we've actually seen in Fayette and Hardeman over the last 8 years is it's gone from a 1 to 2% prevalence increase each year to where we're at between 3 and 5% increase. And pretty soon it'll probably be anywhere from 5 to 10% if you get to a certain point. At a certain point, you still, like during that process, you've got enough animals that aren't sick on the landscape that are able to make up for the animals that are dying. But usually it's around between 30 and 40%, or even a little bit higher, depending on how many deer are on the landscape, where that extra number of animals, and Mark showed this in his presentation in December, where basically you get to a point where the number of animals being added doesn't overcome the number of animals that are being lost between disease and all the hunting and other mechanisms that animals are lost from the landscape. And so that when we're talking about prevalences, anything above 1% is where you're starting to actually, we may not see it as, just out there hunting, but that is when the populations are starting to potentially be negatively impacted. So is that?
Thank you, Dr. Grove. Commissioner McCarty.
I don't know if I want to open the can of worms back up to Monty's question earlier about the west and the middle zone. But looking at some of the restrictions, I think one of the goals that the commission went to before I got on was trying to make things as simple as possible. And for this transportation issue, would it be simple just to say that West Tennessee can't bring deer to Middle Tennessee for the near foreseeable future?
And that's really what we have, Commissioner. The CWD management zone, you can't bring any of the parts out that are considered high risk, because that's what we have. Yes.
Thank you.
Joe, we had some discussion in December, Chattanooga, about the 2-map problem, where we had a transport map and a no baiting map. Can you go back to these maps and make sure and explain how the hunters, that we've simplified it as much as we can for them?
Yes, sir. So again, if our recommendations are passed by you all in the GovOps committee, this would be one of the sort of maps we'd have. We'd have the green CWD management zone, which would just be basically west of the river, including all of Hardin County. And those regulations would essentially remain unchanged. So hunters there would not have a change. Hunters in the east counties, east of there, they would just have to know if their county was positive or not. And that would only pertain to baiting and feeding. So if you want to bait, you have to know if you're positive county. And this could all be done in the hunting guide pretty easily. Another piece I think that one of the commissioners mentioned is we could announce new positive counties only once a year, in the summer. So never mind, we couldn't do that. Feeding and baiting would go into effect automatically. So there might be some changes in the middle of a hunting season for baiting and feeding. But that would be the only change. There wouldn't have to be several maps. It could be simply a list of counties that were positive.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Jones?
So I had one follow-up question, and that was good data, Dr. Groves. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we see a map of Tennessee, and I know that when CWD first started popping up, it was kind of concentrated in that corner of the state, but now we're starting to see other states around us pop up. Is that something we're taking into consideration? I mean, I know it's getting dangerously close to my part of the state and the elk herd up in that area and some of those counties. Is that something that we're taking into consideration as well?
Yes, sir. We're in contact with all the surrounding states and really all the Southeast deer folks and disease folks. Dr. Grove's in contact across the nation with folks. And so those are part of our surveillance probabilities. If a county has a positive nearby, we sample there more to do early detection.
Any other comments from the commission? Tori, would you explain what we're doing and I guess the path forward?
So, Commissioners, this is obviously it's a little bit out of the ordinary. Most of our rules come directly to the full commission for a vote. This was actually this whole topic was actually asked for by Commissioner Ballou last month, so that's why we kind of presented this information in this committee. This is still a preview because this is not a formal public hearing at this point. I think I probably speak for Chief Benedict that we're just trying to ascertain direction the commission wants to go in this matter, because obviously it's the effect. So hope that helps everybody understand kind of where we're at.
So after we vote tomorrow, it goes to rulemaking hearing. Can you explain that?
Sure. If it's referred out of the committee today, obviously there'll be a discussion tomorrow, and if there's a discussion where Chief Benedict feels like he can get concise and get his division concise on what a regulation needs to look like, we can get that drafted and filed by next week so that we can conduct a formal rulemaking hearing in March. That's kind of why we're here having this discussion now.
All right, so I'm going to call a vote to recommend the preview of amendment to chronic wasting disease rule 166001-34 to preview to the full commission for tomorrow. Wildlife Committee only. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Wildlife Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Davenport. I'll now ask Commissioner Box, who is Chair of the Fisheries Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am the chair of the Fisheries Committee. Also on the committee with me are John McCarty, Ford Little, Steve Jones, and Monty Ballou. I would ask Travis Scott, Assistant Chief, to come forward and share with us changes to the sport fishing proclamation.
Thank you. I'd like to present recommendations for Sport Fishing Proclamation 2603. This is the timeline we've been proceeding through. Chief Henniger presented a preview at the December meeting. Since then, we've had a public comment period on those proposed changes. I'll present those at the end of this presentation. And today we're presenting what we would like to see the commission vote on. And tomorrow, of course, you will vote. These recommendations, if approved, will go into effect on August 1st. The first is some delayed harvest regulations we had. The first one is on Piney River. where we're going to remove that delayed harvest regulation. It was in effect from November 1st through the last day of February. It was catch and release only fishing. We conducted creel survey there, and we weren't getting much use during that time of the year, but we were getting more use during the harvest season after March. So we're going to continue to stock in the fall and winter months to provide a fishery, but we're going to allow harvest during that time to see if we can increase participation. For Big Soddy Creek in Hamilton County, we historically have not been able to stock that creek because of water temperatures and flows until November. And so we're just moving that regulation from October to November 1st to reflect when we normally get to stock. The next is waters with closed seasons. We've been working with our wildlife division on Catoosa WMA to provide more angler access to the WMA for fishing some of those streams there. And through that process, we came up to eliminate this April through December 31st guideline and just open it to fishing except during deer hunts and wild hog control seasons. As far as the part of the Bill Dance Signature Lakes program, we're undergoing 2 large renovations at Travis McNatt Lake at Big Hill Pond State Park and at Woodhaven Lake and Montgomery Bell State Park. Part of that, both lakes are currently drawn down, working to establish a contract with a private contractor to do a complete renovation, which includes killing any remaining fish that may be in those waters. There's still remnant water that not all of it could drain, so make sure we don't have any remaining fish so we could start fresh. Initially, there would be liming to improve the water quality. Then we would move to forage stocking, and then eventually the goal is to add bass. And of course, it's going to take bass. We want to manage these as trophy bass fisheries. So initially, we would like to have a catch and release only season on both of these lakes until we get those bass fisheries established where we want them. The next is the name change that went into effect based on the commission vote to change Herb Parsons Lake to Bill Dance Lake at Herb Parsons Refuge. This is just one example, but there were multiple instances within the proclamation where we had to make that change. Just wanted to represent that here. And then in the process, this is hard to see, I apologize. In the process of going through our proclamation, we found some relics that needed to be eliminated. There was a mention of a Land Between the Lakes wildlife management area, which no longer exists. So we struck that from the proclamation. And then there was a reference for areas closed to fishing for Woods Reservoir from a proclamation in 1974. And so as opposed to having that kind of vague statement in there, we actually added the wording from that proclamation to reflect what those closed areas are to make it simpler for our anglers to understand. On our public comments, it was open from December 5th through January 5th. We had 28 individuals submit comments. For the most part, folks were either neutral or supportive of their proposed recommendations. Overall, we asked for a satisfaction rating of their fishing in Tennessee. It was a 3.7 out of 5 average, and 72% of respondents rated their fishing experience in Tennessee at 4 or above. With that, I'll take any questions.
Committee members, any questions? Any questions from the full commission?
I'd just like to say y'all are putting in a new, really nice new boat ramp at Paris Landing as well on the Bill Dance Signature Series. It's going to be a huge ramp. Our heavy equipment crew's doing it. Looking really good.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion from the committee.
So moved.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your motion passes. Mr. Chairman, that's all the business of the Fisheries Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Box. I'm now going to ask Vice Chair Davenport to make a presentation for the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call Deputy Director Frank Fisk to the podium. Thank you, Frank.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll be able to provide a financial report through November of 25. We're caught up an extra month because of the way the timing worked out. I'll start with our boating fund, this operational fund. We are right on track. We're only about $2,000 off of where we thought we'd be at this time on income, and our expense is slightly higher than the 3-year average, but still within a reasonable rate. On the wildlife fund, we're slightly ahead on license income, but not a lot. $500,000 is not a lot in that on that scale. Our current expense to budget is at 28%, slightly higher than the 3-year average. On the wetland acquisition fund, you'll see our income year to date is $6.8 million. We're still holding that over $20 to $24 million rate of revenue from the real estate transfer tax. Our withdrawals are up to 13.7 million year to date in this fiscal year. That's we're moving more of that revenue. Let me back up. Try to back up. We're still moving more of that wetland acquisition fund to the wildlife fund to reimburse for law enforcement this year. So the goal again is to be withdrawing more than is coming in so that we can lower that balance to a range around 8 million, 7 million by the end of this fiscal year. So we're on track to do that. That's all I'm trying to tell you. And here's where our investments are right now. As of the end of November, I actually got December's during this meeting, and it hasn't really changed much, unfortunately, in the last month. But you'll see that we are earning, have positive increased value on these funds, and the SPIF is still earning about 3.9%. But those balances on the far right are where the two endowment funds are, the lifetime and watchable, and our wildlife and boating operation funds are the last two rows there. Are there any questions about our balances or investments?
Thank you, Deputy Director Fisk. Any questions from the Budget Committee? Any questions from full commission? Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Budget Committee. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Rhonda Moody for the Public and Legislative Relations Committee.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone, the committee members for the Public Relations and Legislative Committee, myself, Rosemary McElhenney, Stan Butt, Chip Saltzman, John McCarty, and Haynes Torbett. At this time, I would like to ask General Counsel Tori Grimes to provide a recap of the naming request and an update after the public comment period.
Thank you, Chairman. We had two naming requests that the commission voted. I think it was in August to put in the process of public comment period. The first one was the Duck River access at Howard Bridge and naming that access officially after Mr. Edward and Nancy Penrod. There was several members of the public commented, all positive in favor of that. And if you recall from the presentation then, both of those had many years of efforts of dedication to conservation in Tennessee. They were mentors to many young sportsmen in the Murray County area. And obviously we covered the key points in the proclamation that's before you. The second one would be the Elk River access at Vito Road. This initially started as a legislative request, and it came, and we once the commission got its naming policy, we did move this one forward. This one would be named after Mr. Paul Edgman. It was actually the county's very first boat ramp and access area. And Mr. Edgman was very active, a sportsman, dedicated turkey hunter, and very engaged in the local community. His brother, his nephew, all were former employees of the agency. He actually worked at the old Game and Fish Commission. This is a This one had significant, I say significant, this one had both had several members of the public wrote in during the comment period, all with positive recommendations in favor of the commission taking this action. So that is, that's my update for both of the matters on the agenda.
Thank you for that update and presenting those. Do I have any questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Any from the full commission? Seeing none. I will, at this time, entertain a motion from the committee members to present this on to full commission tomorrow. Thank you, Stan. All in favor? Any opposed? Chairman will move this on to commission tomorrow.
Thank you, Commissioner Moody. I think this is wrapping up our agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment before we adjourn? Yes, sir. I think I know your name, but if you please state it. And again, we appreciate you coming in here and giving us a presentation.
My name is Fred Walker from Maryville, Tennessee, and I'm trying to propose a flintlock deer hunting season for the state of Tennessee. And I just wanted to today give you maybe some nuances that people might not have thought about, some oddities or whatever else. One thing is that there is no FFL license required for a muzzleloader. I guess the federal government doesn't consider it a firearm. If you haven't thought about that, if I order in a 22 for my grandson, I've got to send it to an FFL dealer. I order in a muzzleloader, I don't. It comes straight to my house. So just something to think about. One of the other things that I did last week while it was nice and warm is I tried to take some photographs of open sights and deer. I know you can't see this, but what I did was set out a decoy, Montana decoy, and tried to take a photograph of the deer at 25 yards, at 50 yards, and at 75 yards to show you how little you can see of this deer at 50 and 75 yards because the deer is horizontal and your sights block horizontal on an open sight muzzleloader. But yet a person is vertical and is very easy to be seen through the open sights of a muzzleloader. So it's just kind of some nuances I wanted to present. If you want to look at the photographs, I have them here where you can see. I guess the other thing that I wanted to do, of course, I'm board of directors of CORA. We're having discussions with CORA. I have some books available. If any of the commissioners in the past have not gotten a CORA book that gives you the 100% complete history of North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area from 1987 upon conception. All the details of why we did what we did, how we funded, why we funded, how we funded, and what happened, exact details. And I have some available to the commissioners if they need them, want them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. That's very interesting. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Moody.
I appreciate your comments and your presentation and your affiliation with CORA. And just to let everyone know, this past week, CORA lost one of its founding board members. Glenn Massengale passed away this past week. He was one of the founding members of CORA and a dear friend to us in the Upper Cumberland. He will be missed. So just keep his family in your prayers, please.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, do we have any other questions? Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
My name is Scott Summers. I brought in As you can read, I'm Scott Summers. I'm not a biologist. I'm a realtor. I've been hunting turkeys all my life since 1968. I killed my first bird in 78 and only bring us up. Y'all have any idea how many turkeys were harvested in 78? 44 birds. I thought I was pretty cool. I killed one, right? So anyway, what I'm here for, I want to propose, flip the page there. I just want to propose some ideas. I'm not very satisfied with the turkey season. I think y'all have done a fabulous job. How many of y'all hunt turkey? Show of hands. Everybody? How many killed two? Everybody? No? Yeah, right. And do y'all even have any idea who Jack Murray is? He's the reason we have turkeys in this state. I was talking to Joe. He had heard him, but I grew up with Jack, and he was my hero. And he taught me more about turkeys than, honestly, you can read out of a book type thing. But anyway, I bring that up. And like I said, do y'all know what a limb hanger is? A turkey that'll hang by his spurs from a tree limb. Most people don't know that today. Hey, flip over to page 3 real quick. These are some possible changes I'd like to see for future seasons. Please don't let the season run past mid-May. There are pokes running around on the ground and you got the season open. I just don't think that's right. I'm not a biologist, but we need to cut it off. Could we start maybe just a little bit earlier? You know, I was talking to Joe and I didn't realize some of this stuff may be already incorporated into the regulations, but it's now closest to April the 7th. So that's basically what I'm saying. I just wanted it started a little early, but please end it before, you know, the end of Mother's Day. That's plenty late. If you hadn't killed 2 birds by then, go fishing, go play golf, go do something. You can read the rest of this, but I would like to see the ability to harvest 3 birds again in Tennessee. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people do it anyway, and their sisters and cousins and brothers check them in. But if you'll go to the very last page, I'm just thinking something like this. If in the western states, they have zones. I know there's a problem in the southern portions. There's a problem in the west. They don't have the populations that the rest of the state does. I mean, could you consider having, like, y'all are up getting revenue, sell a 3rd turkey tag for people that where the populations would, sustain that. I mean, where I live, there's turkeys everywhere. And I drive all over the place in Tennessee selling land. I mean, that's what I do. And I know the populations down south are in trouble. In West Tennessee, depending on the flooding, we have different populations. So would y'all consider doing that, even with the non-residents? Sell them a turkey tag. Y'all want to raise some money? We got a lot of non-residents that hunt here now. Tennessee's become a turkey state to go to. And with these non-residents, let them bag a bird. If they want to shoot 2, charge them, sell them a tag. But think about putting them in these zones where they're really high harvests. They're high populations. It might be a way for y'all to increase some revenue, but I really would like to see y'all go back to a 3 bird limit in some areas. You can read these other things I put in there, and these aren't just my opinion. I sat out in the duck blind last Sunday amongst 7 hunters, and we talked about this. Y'all talked about things yesterday. And Wally's the one that told me to get up here and do this. He said, I've been in here his ear about it, and he said, get up here and speak your 2 cents. So here I am. So if y'all would consider this, look at these. These suggestions are from a lot of turkey hunters. I do the governor's one-shot turkey hunt every year. You get to see hundreds of turkey hunters all at one time. I don't know if any of y'all do that, but I'm a fanatic about turkey hunting. So I wish y'all would allow or consider allowing a 3 bird limit in certain areas. Sell a tag. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So y'all need revenue. I'd like to see something like that occur. So y'all have any questions for me? No, but I'm up here a lot. Kingston Springs. No, I'm just covered up with them. I mean, I live with turkeys. They're in my yard all day, every day. They roost in my trees every night. I watch turkeys all the time. But now Wally and I are just friends over the years. But anyway, thank you for your time, and I appreciate what y'all do. I've known a bunch of the commissioners, and y'all do a fabulous job. So it's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions from Mr. Sammons?
Yeah, y'all got any questions? I do. When do you vote on the next turkey hunting regulations? I doubt this can occur this year, but when do y'all start adopting these things?
March and April.
We'll preview in March and vote in April.
Well, I'll be back. Thank you.
Please do. Yeah. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment? Any commissioners? Well, I want to thank our partners who made presentations today. We really appreciate you. Tennessee Tech, Ducks Unlimited Canada. Howie, thank you for coming all the way down here. Appreciate it. Always great to see everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.